Alright, so let's talk about the program that we just did the algorithm for, which is program 4, number 12 in your book. I have copied in the skeleton or file I have put out in Blackboard for you. That way I know I can come in here, I can type the program purpose to determine the gallons. You would put your name, I'll put my name, and the date. Anything else you want to include would be great. So then we're going to start with declaring variables. So when you start coding, the first thing you do is declare variables. And remember we said we would have height, and we said this is how you declare that. Since my typing is so bad today, I'm going to do a little copying and going back and changing. So we have height, width, and length. We also are going to have a double variable for gallons. So I'm going to go back and put this in here. So these are the variables that I'm going to need. I suggest you start coming out here to the side and putting comments like I'm doing, so that someone coming behind you would know what you're doing. Program documentation is very important for the person who has to come behind you in the real world and fix your program. So I've kind of got the variables declared, and then I'm going to do a begin program getting in the inputs from the user. So I'm going to come down here, and remember the first thing we have to always do is the prompt, where we say enter the height in inches. The more you can give the user, the better. Notice I'm putting some spacing in there. I want to make things look pretty. And then I'm going to, right behind that, get the height in, right? So I have now gotten two statements. So every time you want to get a variable in, it's going to be a prompt statement for cout and then a cin. Notice also in Visual Studio, it will, as you go along, kind of correct you as you go to make sure you get things right as you're typing. Now you've got your height. And we go along, enter the width in inches. Now I'm all about having pretty screens, so keep that in mind when you're doing these assignments. And you can always, as I like to do, copy and paste if it helps you and you can remember to correct things and it speeds things along. There you go. Alright, so I've got in the length, the width, and the height in inches. I'm going to skip a little bit because I know what I'm going to have to do is do a display. Do you remember how to display the output? Excuse me. So I'm going to put in here display the output to the user. So under here I know I'm going to have to put out to the screen the total gallons needed will be, and I'm going to have to do that by putting the variable name in here, so it's called gallons, right? I'm also going to do an end return after this because it makes my screen pretty, keeps things from running together. Put an end line. Remember I have system pause. Again, I think you should come in here and put stops the screen so the user can see the output. All right, so I'm missing one thing in here. I'm going to call it process the data, right? Now, let's just stop here. I want to kind of make sure before I put any more in here that I've done it correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and come in here and do a build see if I've gotten any errors. I don't have any. And I'm going to go ahead and do a start without debugging. So it says enter the height in inches, 10, width in 10. I'm going to make this a cube. And I'm not going to have total gallons needed correct, one, because I haven't done that calculation yet. But what this tells me, a little thing, is I want my screen to be a little prettier. So I'm going to work on that a minute, making my screen pretty. Again, I just think it makes things easier to read for the user, and that's very important. So let's see if I can, once again, I put some things in here. I just want to make sure my screen is looking better. So I've got height, width, and so that's going to look better, isn't it? So the last thing I'm going to need in here is to calculate the gallons, right? So gallons is going to equal, excuse my alarm, I have to go to class in just a minute. What did we say that formula was? Height. And we have to do times width times length. And then we said we have to divide that by, what do we divide by? 231. Because there's 231 cubic inches. So what I would probably do is go up here and say there are 231 cubic inches in a gallon. And then I would say this is needed for conversion. And that's what a good programmer would do, okay? Let's go back. Save, build. Let's make sure it's building. We don't have any errors. And then we quickly do a start without debugging. All right, that's the number of gallons that I'll need. It gives you numbers. So when you see numbers in your textbook to do debugging by, that's where those numbers come in. So where B says first edge check used 20.5 and 10.5 and 12.5, it's asking you to use those numbers and does check them with that. What it should do is tell you what the answer is, but you would have to do that using a calculator. So again, that's how you would sort of do this program. There are variations on this. This isn't the only way, it's a way. So I hope this guides you a little bit as you're doing some of your first programming.